Welcome to this episode of RTO Insights, brought to you by APRO, the Association of Progressive Rental Organizations, the National Trade Association for the Rent-to-Own Industry, and sponsored by Rent Direct, a division of Nationwide, the country's largest retail buying group. I want to talk this time about a book I read a few years ago. The title of the book is called Clockers by Richard Price. It's an inner city murder mystery and a study of two men, a homicide detective and a crack cocaine dealer. It's a 600-page novel. I'm not going to do a book report. I don't necessarily expect any of you to read a 600-page novel, not in this age when life is explained 140 characters at a time and attention spans are measured in nanoseconds. But if you can focus that long, you will be richly rewarded. The theme of this episode of RTO Insights deals with an anecdote that occurred in this movie. I need to set up the scene for you, and then I can relate the characters' involvement in that scene with our business. The setup is this. There are two detectives, Rocco and Mazzilli. They're investigating the murder of a young boy in the projects. Rocco is a young detective suffering from job burnout. Mazzilli is older and closer to retirement. On the side, Mazzilli owns a liquor store in the middle of the projects called Shafts. The specific scene is Saturday night at the liquor store. Mazzilli is there. He's run out of help. Some of his employees have not been able to make it, and he's asked his detective partner, Rocco, to help him out since he's short-handed in the liquor store. Rocco says okay, but he's on edge anyway because the murder investigation is going badly. The scene is Saturday night in the liquor store with an army of clockers and baseheads marching in and out of Shafts for cigarettes, beer, pork rinds, and sweets. Clockers are store corner crack cocaine merchants who sell crack cocaine by the vial, and baseheads are the users. Here's Rocco observing the crowd. At least half of the customers lived off the mailbox, and since it was just 2 weeks into the month, many of them were still somewhat flush. Rocco could have guessed the date by how the store's customers held themselves when they walked in. As the end of the month neared, the postures would start slumping, but for now everybody was carrying a little pride, a little spirit. Enter Rodney Little. He's a drug dealer who has a stable of clockers in his employ, and he also owns a counter grocery store near the liquor store. He and Mazzilli have an arrangement for shortages. They can come to one another and buy at wholesale if one of them runs short of some product. While Little and Mazzilli are in the back talking, Rocco's at the register and he sells a can of beer to a customer. Here's more of the text from the scene. A lot of the same people had been in and out several times, moving between the street and the store all night, making repeat purchases of a single item. It drove Rocco nuts. Guys would buy 10 loose cigarettes on 10 trips for $1.50 when they could have bought a pack, twice as many butts for the same price. When a customer comes into the store for his fifth can of beer, single can of beer, Rocco can't hold it in anymore, and so here's what he says. You ever hear of a six-pack? The guy just looked at him. One trip, about 10 cents cheaper per can. You should think about it, you know. Rocco's critique provokes no response from the beer buyer, but does provoke a lecture from Rodney, who is looking on. Let me ask you something. You go into a bar, you sit down, you say to the bartender, give me 6 beers. Or you say, give me 1 beer. Rocco didn't answer, his face growing hot. Rocco then offers the explanation that the beer buyer can't really afford to go to a bar and pay bar prices. According to Rodney, the street is the beer buyer's bar. He gets to sit on a stoop for free and watch the girls go by, and Rocco is his bartender. The conversation then degenerates into an argument between the two. They argue who knows more about the people and life on the street, the detective or the drug dealer. Little exit. Rocco looks to Mazzilli for support. Mazzilli tells his partner, you know, he's kind of right. Rocco, angrier than ever, sputters, that's the problem with these people, they don't plan ahead. Is that the problem, Mazzilli? Hiked an eyebrow. He's kind of right, Rocco muttered, feeling as if he just flunked a wisdom test. A little bit later, the beer buyer comes back in for his 6th can of beer. Rocco bides his time, says nothing, but the beer buyer can't hold it back. If I buy a mother effing six-pack and sit out there, how many goddamn beers do you think I'm going to have, and how many beers do you think I'm going to get mooched on, stupid? The guy stalks out under the streetlights. The perspective of RTO critics is not so very different from Rocco. From their lofty purchases, they're never going to have to rent a TV or a sofa or a refrigerator, and since they don't have to do that, their attitude is that nobody else should either. They not only know what's right for themselves, they know what's right for everybody else. They know how everybody ought to be spending their money, what they ought to eat, and the list goes on and on. It's endless. We can all be grateful that they are not yet completely in charge of the American way of life. In the meantime, and until they are, treat your customers like royalty. They deserve it.